Roland MT-32, CM32L and General MIDI for 50 bucks. I do apologize a little bit for the catchy title, but I did want to grab your attention because I think this is a really cool project. So what is this about? Those who are into playing games on retro computers, you might have heard of Roland MIDI and General MIDI, and getting these units can be quite expensive. I've got a few of them, but it cost me quite a bit of money to piece them all together. You can easily spend between $500 to $1,000 depending on the price of the auction and whether or not it comes boxed or with a power supply and without. But there's a cheaper way. So in this video I'm going to show you how to build a MIDI box that can do MT-32, CM32L and General MIDI through software. And the main ingredient, the USB MIDI adapter, costs around $50. Everything else is free to download and maybe lying around at home. All the specs of the machine I've used and all the links for all the downloads can be found in the description. So without further ado, let's have a look at some of the parts we need for our MIDI box. We definitely need a sound card with MPU 401 interface. Now it doesn't have to be one of the intelligent mode interfaces. It can be a stock standard UART MPU 401 interface. I recommend that you make sure your sound card doesn't have the hanging note bug. I used an AWE64 and I can recommend that card. It worked really well. You'll need a MIDI cable. Mostly that's a joystick to MIDI adapter. There are different types. The one I used is only for MIDI, but there are more advanced models that have a pass-through for joystick. So that allows you to connect the MIDI device as well as still use the joystick. One key component of the MIDI box is the Roland UM1 MK2. It's a USB MIDI interface. Now I've got another cheap interface from eBay. If you search on eBay, you'll find them straight away. They do work quite well for connecting DOSBox to a real MT-32, but using the MIDI input function, as I'm showing in this video, I found it didn't work that well. It had a few instruments that sounded off and wrong. So in this case, I do recommend you spend a little bit more. They sell for around $50. And then you have a top quality product that will actually work pretty well. It's compatible with XP, Windows 7, Windows 8.1. And there is if you do a modification in one of the files, you can also install it in Windows 10. So I'm pretty sure that once Windows 10 comes out, Roland will release an official driver. You need a notebook or another PC to run MUNT and some general MIDI sound font software. I'm using a fairly basic laptop. It's a Celeron 1.7 gigahertz. I believe it's a dual core, but it's really not a high performing machine. So if you've got an older laptop lying around and you don't have a use for it, hey, that might be an opportunity right here and there. And finally, we need an audio cable. Now that cable connects from the audio out of your PC or laptop into the line in of your sound card. So that will make sure that the Sound Blaster sound effects, for example, get mixed together with the Roland MT-32, CM32L or General MIDI music. Double check your mixer settings on your retro gaming PC and make sure that the line in is actually activated. On the AWE64, this is not the case by default, so you have to run mixer set and on the bottom right, make sure that the line in checkboxes are ticked. So in this part, I'm going to show you how to configure our MIDI box in Roland MT-32 mode. We will be using MUNT, the Roland emulator, and we also need the MT-32 ROM files. Now I've captured the output of both my notebook and my retro gaming PC. Here I'm running MUNT, and then I'm going to Tools, New MIDI port, and I'm selecting the UM1 MIDI interface. So we're basically telling MUNT to listen to the MIDI in of the UM1 MK2. And then all you have to do is go to your retro gaming PC and run your favorite game. I'm using Monkey Island 2 in this example because it doesn't need an intelligent mode MIDI interface. For that, you'll have to use soft MPU, but for this game, it is not required. I'll show you a game that uses soft MPU later. can use soft MPU to add compatibility with intelligent mode games. For example, Space Quest 3 from Sierra is one such game. So you don't have to shell out a lot of money to get a MPU for one intelligent mode interface. You can just use a stock Sound Blaster and just load soft MPU. Bit of a downside is that some games take a lot longer to load. Space Quest 3, for example, is one of such games. So I'm just gonna forward the video a little bit. So in this part, I'm showing you how to configure our MIDI box in Roland CM32L mode. First, I disconnect MUD from the USB MIDI interface. I then change the ROM files. So we're using the CM32L ROM files. And then through new MIDI port, I connect MUD up with our MIDI interface. And why do we need to do that? There are a lot of games that use the 33 extra sound effects that the CM32L supports. And we're going to look at some of these games. Elite is one. You won't hear any laser and explosions without the CM32L. Then we're looking at another game, Ultima Underworld, where you don't hear water and some other sound effects. And finally the game Gods, where the sound effects are a lot inferior if you don't have a CM32L. In this part, we're looking at general MIDI. We're turning our MIDI box into a general MIDI device. Now we're using bass MIDI and MIDI aux. I used to use virtual MIDI synth, but a friendly YouTuber under the name of Alexander 3 alerted me of the fact that there are some hanging note issues with virtual MIDI synth. And I noticed that in one of my last videos about TIE Fighter. So I switched back to bass MIDI. So what we need to do first, we run our bass MIDI and we need to load some sound fonts, and there are quite a few of them. I'll put a link in the description where you can download them. So I'm starting with Weed's General MIDI, and then you just confirm it. And once you've got your sound font loaded in bass MIDI, we load up MIDI aux and press this button here. And here on the left side, you just got to make sure that the input is set to your USB MIDI device and the output is set to bass MIDI synth A. And that's it, ready to go. So now all you have to do is configure your gain to use general MIDI on port 330, and off you go for some really impressive general MIDI music. If you want to change sound fonts, it's important that you close MIDI aux. Once it's closed, you can go back to bass MIDI and just remove the existing sound font and add a new one. So that's what I'm going to do as we go forward with the video. I'm just going to swap out sound fonts and try various games out. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to some of you building a MIDI box out there and sharing your experiences. How did you go? Did it work for you? Did anything not work? Did you have to change anything? As always, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Spread the word between your friends. I put a lot of effort into these videos, and I do appreciate any feedback from you guys. Any questions, leave comments down below. I'm happy to answer them as soon as I can. And that's it. I'll see you soon in one of my future videos.